Hello, my name is Aldona and I'm a research assistant from the University of British Columbia. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the BC Hazelnut On-Farm Trial Network Research Plan, which I hope will support BC hazelnut growers in BC. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge that I am at UBC, and UBC is located on the traditional ancestral and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. So this is the UBC group, which consists of myself, my supervisor, Alex Leon, and Thorsten Klitper, who is a new UBC assistant professor interested in hazelnut research. And there is also Karina, who many of you know from the Ministry of Agriculture, who has provided immense support in the completion of this plan. So what is the BC Hazelnut On-Farm Trial Network? What is its purpose, and why is it important? The purpose is to support the BC hazelnut industry by developing an on-farm research network to test the performances of hazelnut varieties with resistance to EFB across different BC regions. So as you know, Eastern Fieldbird blight has devastated the hazelnut industry in BC, and this plan is an opportunity to revitalize that industry by providing growers to participate in participatory trials to test new hazelnut varieties. So why should growers participate in these trials, and what research questions will the project help answer to support the industry? To look into this, we need to answer 3 essential research questions. The first one is, which hazelnut cultivars are suitable for which BC climate regions, and how will they perform in terms of disease resistance, nut yield, and management? As newer production shifts towards the Okanagan Valley and Vancouver Island, there is actually very limited data on these cultivar performances in zones outside the Fraser Valley, and it is very important for growers to understand the nut yield potential for the BC consumer market. The second question is, how can participating growers share knowledge about cultivars and best practices with each other and researchers? So one of the benefits is participatory on-farm research trials provide farmers an opportunity to gather and share data about cultivars. The last question is, what data is essential to collect to understand how climate and region affects a variety? So I talked a little bit about the background and purpose. I'm going to talk a little bit about the grower feedback we received, the data existing currently, data collection we're proposing. I'm going to talk about the strategy we developed to make this plan, knowledge mobilization, and the next steps in future research. So we conducted a literature review and looked at research trials in Canada and Oregon, USA. We focused on the trial in BC, which tested these varieties. And it turns out that Jefferson and Yamhill have very high resistance to EFB and very high nut yield. We then distributed a survey to BC hazelnut grower members and to access priorities and grower interests. So from this feedback, we looked at what kind of varieties are already planted in BC, and this gives an idea of the variation already in existence. And then we asked growers what kind of cultivars would they like to be included in future research trials. And as you can see, there's Jefferson, there's Yamhill, which are very popular, and there's also other varieties that produce high nut yields, such as Webster and McDonald, and also Polio, which is a new variety that growers are very excited about. From our survey, we also have an indication that most growers are very excited to actually participate in new research trials. So for example, some of the research activities include monitoring female flowers, monitoring the male flowers, recording trunk diameter, harvesting samples of nuts. So farmers are obviously very interested in participating in these trials. From our literature review, we concluded that nut yield and quality flowering time and timing of a pollen shed are important study traits. And hazelnut female flowering time and timing of pollen shed are actually 2 of the most important traits to measure in a new research trial. But what is missing? There is actually very little research on EFB-resistant cultivars and climate. And this is actually essential to understanding how new cultivars perform in various climate zones in BC. There is also limited data on understanding the effect climate zones have on optimal tree performance, water requirements, and water stress. So why is tree and climate data important? It allows you to choose a cultivar specific for your needs and agriculture zone. It allows you to understand that cultivars' water needs and management in a changing climate. And the sharing of data is very important to other growers and researchers. Ultimately, using diverse varieties resistant to EFB is a very important strategy for climate change adaptation because, for example, if you have diversification in your orchard and some of your varieties are not doing so well, there will be others that are doing well and will serve as buffers against disease. So what basic data is actually essential? Well, obviously, there is the timing of flowering, which is greatly affected by climate. The second is the growth of the tree. The third is the soil composition, and the fourth is obviously yield. And why is collecting this data important? Well, if you look at the anatomy of the tree, it's all interconnected. So if you're sampling for soil, you are looking at the pH, the nutrients, the drainage, and the contents, and water usage. And all of these nutrients are transported through the trunk towards the canopy, and the canopy is where all the action happens, such as photosynthesis, water loss, and also results in nut yield. So all of these factors together actually influence yield and tree performance in any climate zone. So here is our proposed sampling protocol. There are more details in the plan. We are proposing sampling 5 trees per variety and measuring timing of flowering, which is very time consuming. There is also growth, soil composition, yield, climate data, and other observatory data that can be included. So to give a brief overview of what we did a background research and stakeholder feedback. We created an actionable plan for the testing of ERB-resistant cultivars, and we synthesized this information. We developed data collection protocols, determined the traits to measure for data collection and the number of trees to sample. And now we're going to look at suggesting options for knowledge mobilization. So knowledge mobilization, how can we put this plan into action? Unfortunately, there are no funding initiatives that will specifically target this project at this time, but the On-Farm Trial Network can spark the creation of other sources such as online research and data sharing platforms for farmers to have accessible results. An example of this is the BC Food Web, where summaries of results can be posted. There is also outreach and training, such as webinars, courses, apps, workshops, which will support the data collection and basic disease monitoring for farmers. Social media and communications will be very important to inform farmers about upcoming events and outreach. And for funding opportunities, there is MyTex, which is internships between students and university students and industries. And there are other funding options that farmers can look into as well. So what are the next steps to implement this plan? Well, there are potential funding partners, and this could include resources at UBC, resources at the ministry, and other resources. Other resources could include research stations such as in Agassiz and Summerland, which might be interested in working with the industry. There is also University of Fraser Valley and Kwantlen Polytech University, which have expressed interest in hazelnuts. And there are also private industries or nurses which may incorporate funding to help implement this plan. For resources at the ministry, there is the Hazelnut Renewal Program, and there could potentially be other funding sources that farmers could look into. I'm going to talk a little bit about the resources at UBC, which includes the UBC Farm, UBC Faculty Research, which I will get into, and also UBC hiring UBC students through internships. So for UBC Research, there is a faculty member, Dr. Torsten Kipter, who is very interested in hazelnut research related to the screening of hazelnuts and water savings, and he actually has a video which I highly recommend looking into. So potential next steps: hosting workshops to bring these willing partners together and develop a research, develop a funding plan, identify which of these partners are actually willing to fund this project, and also explore other funding opportunities that might be available. I would like to acknowledge that these organizations delightfully helped support this project and this research plan. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this topic, and thank you so much for listening.